even if things are fantastic and you're making the money and you're loving the life, I know that I need to keep growing and I need to keep pushing myself to those limits to get out of my comfort zone, because that's where the growth occurs.
Welcome to Trial to Triumph, hosted by Caleb Johnson, the show about leaning into life's constant testing on your way to realizing your biggest blessings.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Caleb Johnson, host of From Trial to Triumph. This is the show where we talk to people who have gone through tremendous trials and have now come out on the other side triumphant. And today, I'm very excited for our guest, who is, his name's Randy Smith, and he is a full-time syndicator and has been a passive investor for over 10 years as well. So, Randy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Caleb. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's been super neat to get to know you and see your journey as well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we're really happy to have you here. So can you give our listeners a quick background about just where you've started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am, recently retired from my W-2. I was in corporate America in sales and sales leadership for about 25 years or so. And my wife and I got into active investing through the Burr model and turnkey model out of state about 5 years ago. And we ended up buying a handful of properties and very quickly realized that that was not a route I wanted to continue pursuing. So we moved over into the passive investing space. Fast forward a couple of years, we've invested in about 15 deals, and I am now leveraging the fund-to-fund model to raise capital for a couple of syndicators.
Okay. Yeah, great. I know you've had some shifts, we'll call them, in your W-2 job, and especially being in that industry for 25 years. Can you talk about some of those moments that you've had to be just roll with the punches?
Yeah, roll with the punches. I think that is definitely a good way to put it. And I was thinking about this prior to the podcast, and there are certainly a couple of times in my career where I had to make some shifts, as we all do, and those shifts generally are not that comfortable, but my experience has shown that those shifts and those transitions are really what lead to like true growth, and gives you the opportunity to really dig in and find out where your true passions are and where you can be really good at. So, very specifically, there was one situation I had managed or been in an active sales role probably 10 or 12 years. I had recently moved into a new organization in financial services industry, Fortune 100 company. So it was a very large organization, very different structure than where I was coming from. I had worked in the environmental services industry prior to that, which was kind of the good old boys club. And this was very corporate. These were highly educated folks. These were true professionals in the space. So I moved into that role with about 10 years of experience in sales and sales leadership. And I had really built a brand for myself for being a producer in that space, and came into the role, which was, that in and of itself was an interesting transition, but spent about 2 years in that capacity and hit, I would guess, a low spot in my career where I was not performing at the level that I had been used to performing. I wasn't necessarily hitting the metrics. Probably more importantly than anything, though, is I was not leading my sales team the way that I had grown accustomed to. Right, I was on my heels constantly, and I just was not hitting the numbers. And I ended up having a new leader come over and take over, and very quickly we realized that I probably was not a fit for him, which was very uncomfortable, because I had had a number of years where I'd been performing and done very well and won awards and done all the things that you're supposed to do in that role. So this was a fairly abrupt change at the time. And I actually ended up getting demoted down to a position that was essentially the same as the position that I had been leading for the last 10 years or so. So it was humbling, it was humiliating, and it was one of the hardest points of my career to be able to actually have to walk into an office and go sit down next to the guys that I had actually been leading and then do the job that I had been training people to do for so many years. Now, what I'll say is that demotion actually led to another promotion pretty quickly, and I ended up landing in what I at the time and still to this day call like my ideal job, where I was getting to work with small business owners. I was out in the field running around meeting with folks face to face, and I was able to, make all the money I ever imagined I could ever make. I had the work-life balance. It really was the perfect situation. And left to my own ways, I would have probably stayed in that other role. So I think, the lessons that I got from that were, one, leaders need to be able to make those uncomfortable decisions where, the good of the organization and even the good of the individual quite often is going to be a very uncomfortable decision and transition. And it could be, it's probably a very difficult decision to make, but broader picture, quite often if a person's in the wrong position, the best thing you can do for them is move them on to the next role so they can go on and try to find what it is they're truly passionate about. And, at the time, I was not a big fan of the person that demoted me. Fortunately, I had a fantastic leader that kind of pulled me under his wings and kind of stuck me aside for a few months until we found that ideal role. But fast forward a handful of years, I look back at that and I'm extremely grateful for that hard decision that he made, because it really set me up for the success I would know for the next 10 plus years.
Yeah, it's always hard going through those times. We never know what will come from them. And like you said, they can be very humbling. And I can see how that would be a very hard thing to go through, sitting next to the person you used to lead and used to be in charge of, and now you guys are at the same level and coworkers. That would be a hard pill to swallow. But like you said, you learned from that, and you were able to get into a better position from that. Now, I'd like to just reflect on what caused, so that our listeners and myself can understand what caused that initial slippage, possibly, so that we can look out for those signs. So can you talk about what might have caused that, maybe lack of drive or whatever that was?
Yeah, interesting. And really, really good question, because that kind of comes back to the core. As I had mentioned, I had been in a similar role for about 10 years. And I had actually passed up, within the same organization, I had passed up a promotion. In my prior role, I had passed up a couple of promotions, primarily based on fear. I was kind of the big dog, performing at a high level, so it was hard to take the leap at that point due to the uncertainty, due to the fear. I mean, ultimately, fear is what kept me from taking those promotions. So fast forward, when I was in that role, by being stale and stagnant for too long, I lost my passion, I lost the drive, I lost the excitement, and then that starts to come through, obviously, in the results. And I've always said that once, as a sales guy, if you believe in what you're selling, it's the greatest job in the world. But if you don't believe in what you're selling, it becomes the most difficult job in the world as well. To show up to a position and try to sell something that you're not passionate about, whether that sales be to clients or to be employees or to the organization as a whole. So, the big lesson for me was, when I come up to those positions where I've got an opportunity to move forward, even if things are fantastic and you're making the money and you're loving the life, I know that I need to keep growing and I need to keep pushing myself to those limits to get out of my comfort zone, because that's where the growth occurs. And if the growth is occurring, then the passion and the excitement and the drive are fast followers.
And I have read a book called The Go-Giver, and it shows an example of that. And like you said, if you don't pursue where you feel your heart is really calling you, then you're going to feel that tension for a while. And that's even harder to deal with, right? And,
absolutely.
And like you said, you start slipping a little bit, and it can just really get messy. But I think it was really just great that you can see that it was a fear, right? The fear of stepping out, possibly failing, and you can get kind of comfortable in this position that you're in. But sometimes you just need to take that step to get out of your comfort zone. And if you fail forward. So I think that's great. And I know that you've had another recent, you just said you were retired from your day job, so congratulations on that.
Yeah.
But I'd like to learn just a little bit about that story.
Yeah. So thank you. So I mentioned that last position actually, or that last situation put me in a position where I ended up moving into a role once again that I was in for some variation for about 8 years or so. And I ended up rising up the stack ranks and winning the President's Clubs and helping with the launch of some amazing products and team building and coaching and all kinds of different leadership opportunities. And ended up just a couple of months ago, I was actually laid off. I said earlier I was retired, but I was officially laid off from my position, which again can be a humbling experience. It can be a humiliating experience. This time was a little different, though. I came into that position, and life, or the way that we had been living our life over the last handful of years, and quite frankly, due to the decisions that we made with our real estate investing choices, it put us in a situation when the call came that I was laid off, but I had already been doing a lot of different things on the side, and this real estate investment business and career had already started to work concurrently with that. So, in conversations that I had with peers, most of the people that I talked with were very angry. They were upset. They were scared. They were fearful again. And yet there was a small group of us that were very confident. We were excited about the opportunity. And I think that comes from experience, from walking through hard times in the past and seeing that quite often some of the best things that happen in life come on the other side of those hard situations. So I had the term I like lately is calm confidence. I had a calm confidence that things are going to work out. And that's actually been the case in the last couple of months. A business has been launched. It has actually grown much faster than I ever could imagine that it would. And once again, I'm thinking I probably should have taken the jump a little bit sooner than I did. But those golden handcuffs are hard to break for sure. But certainly the lesson is that good things come beyond the difficult challenges for sure.
Yeah, those golden handcuffs, they're just golden handcuffs, man. And it can be hard. But you've obviously handled that transition very well. And I'd like, some people, you're one of the people that I have really seen it done well, where you're out of the job and now your business has really taken off. I know you just raised on one deal and you're looking at several others. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that lead up, because there are so many people that are listening that have day jobs, and I was there not too long ago, where it's daunting, like you've just talked about. It's daunting to get out of that, but and since you've done that exceptionally well, can you talk about that buildup and what really contributed to that happening so fluently?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, you mentioned a great book earlier, Givers, or The Go Giver. And they've got, there's a saying in one of the networking groups that I use or that I attend called Givers Gain. And it's this idea that the goal should simply be to bring value whenever, wherever, however you possibly can. And that has been my mantra for the last, 10 plus years or so. And throughout my career in my last role, and to a certain extent, the roles prior to that as well, I always try to bring value to my leaders, bring value to my colleagues, bring value to anybody and everybody that I can. So, like a simple example of that was when working for a large Fortune 100 company, there are new hires and new employees that come almost weekly. And one of the things I used to do would be to reach out to those folks and just welcome into the team, share that I know that first year is really, really challenging. Let's connect, let me help, and let me do anything I can do to help make that transition more smooth for you. And also mentoring other colleagues and kind of just having that similar mindset. Like anytime I can get somebody on the phone or get in front of somebody and try to add value to them, that will generally come back to me tenfold. And that's been my experience. I've received promotions due to it. I've received accolades from a leadership standpoint at work. I received a lot of awards around leadership for that. And then most importantly, maybe not most importantly, but most recently, when I left and started reaching out to my network that I had built over the last 20 years or so, a common theme that I keep hearing from people is anything you're doing, Randy, I want to be a part of because you brought so much value to me in the past when you didn't even need to. And I can tell you, it gives me shivers right now to even think about that because selfishly, it's great to think that whatever I put out into the world, I'm going to get back tenfold. But unselfishly, because at the time, it's not always convenient to hop on the calls. It's not always convenient. Today, I'm going to drive for 45 minutes to go meet somebody in person for coffee who's a young guy who's just getting started in this space, but I want to try to help him if I can. And I think the universe rewards good efforts and good deeds. And that's been my experience. So ultimately, when I start this business where I'm raising capital or I'm raising dollars from investors into my business that I'm going to go invest in others, people say, Randy's a guy that helps people. I know, like, and trust Randy. So if I can partner with Randy, I would love to. And it's just been really fun getting to reconnect with all these people that I've been able to help over the years and see once again how I can bring more value to them. Selfishly, yes, I'm going to benefit from it. But as a whole, like what's the saying? Rising tides rise all ships. I firmly believe in that, whether it be in education or best practice sharing or just simply helping somebody, whether you're going to get something in return or not.
Oh man, that's so great. And I got shivers too when you said that, where the guy can just reach out and to really see the impact that you make on people. That's great. And Jesus said, treat others how you want to be treated. Right. And that's the golden rule.
Exactly.
And
that is. No, it's interesting when I think back, kind of when I initially got into sales leadership, what I loved about it is that I was helping generally in sales. These are guys that may or may not be educated, may or may not have experience, but generally they're the guys that they've seen some success in the past, but maybe they've not seen tremendous success. And to be able to see in somebody some qualities that you think can be transformed or transitioned into, professionalism and high integrity and those types of things, and then help coach and guide them along that path. I had a gentleman that worked for me in LA for a number of years, and he ended up moving out to Arizona with me. When I moved out to Arizona, I saw him and his wife buy their first home. I saw them have their children, and it was all because, and not just because of me, but because guys took chances on him and helped him to groom him and grow him and help him to really become the guy that he could be. So, and when I went down just prior to the demotion, I had kind of lost that drive. and I had lost that. I lost that piece in me that was really trying to build and grow my people. So
Yeah, I just recently heard of a habit, and I love learning people's habits. And this one individual, his habit is called Connect Three, where every Monday through Friday he'll connect with three people. Just say, "Hey, Randy, I heard you were doing a raise. How's that going?" And do you have any habits that kind of pertain or relate to that? Just helping people and connecting with people.
yeah, so interesting. I am part of a coaching community called Jason Drees Coaching. And it's mindset coaching, and it's a group of like-minded folks that come together and really try to continue to grow and push and evolve from a mindset standpoint. And we have a couple of calls a week, and one process that I do there is a chat function during whatever presentation or education piece that's going on, and people will put comments in there. And I will just simply, every time I'm on those, I'm watching to see who's most engaged. And the people that are, I'll send out a note, and it's just a very generic, literally I'm copy and pasting it from my notepad that says, "Hey, love the energy today. Would love to connect and see if I can bring any value to you or help you in any way. Welcome to the community." And I end up 2 or 3 times a week just connecting with people through that function. And that's led to partnerships, that's led to deals, that's led to new introductions. It's led to all kinds of things. And it's just, again, going back to that giver's gain, like if you put yourself out there and you try to bring value and help people, it's going to come back tenfold. So
That's great. I want to talk a little bit about, before we depart, whenever you start a business, you and I are both in this phase right now where, we just bought mics, all the software you buy, there's so much stuff, and it could take up 2 months of your time, it feels like. And what is the biggest thing that has helped you transition into that?
So I'm a big believer in mentorship, and success leaves clues. So when I first left the job, I found a mentorship program, a guy who had wrote a book about how do you do whatever it is that I'm doing. And he literally got into the details of use these systems, buy this product, do this thing. And the interesting thing is that basically I did that. And the interesting thing though is that I'm finding now that wasn't the best things that I should have been doing. But I heard a great quote recently, it's better to be done than to be perfect. And, yes, I got a email marketing platform that I have since stopped using. I got a CRM tool that I have since stopped using. I bought a video thing for way too little money. But it was enough that it got me going. It got me in the trenches. It got me in the game, and I can grow and upgrade those things now. So I think one of the biggest thing is just take action. You can adjust. I used to look at failure as defined, but failure is really just, as you mentioned earlier, failing forward. And if what's the saying? Is it Einstein? Whatever it was, if I can fail 100 times, I've found 100 ways not to do it, and I'm one step closer to the right way of doing it.
Man, I was shaking my head the whole time you were saying that. At least you have to take action. And there's so many people that I see that have a W-2 job, and they're underwriting a lot of deals or talking to a lot of people, but they're just stuck. And they've been there for a year.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do need that push, like you getting laid off, and thank God that you had the reserves. You had 10 years of passive income experience already behind you, so you had that to help you, but that was a real, it sounded like a driving factor that said, okay, this is it. I'm going for it. And yeah, even if you take action, sometimes you do waste money and you think, man, that kind of hurt. I didn't want to, pay an extra $60 a month for that for a year. But at least, like you said, Einstein said, I found 100 ways to not do something. So That's good.
Yeah, something else too, just to add to that. And I know our community is centered around real estate. I know that this podcast might not be 100% real estate related, but when I first started investing in the space, I bought some turnkey properties. And in hindsight, it was a terrible purchase. I didn't do what I needed to do, the due diligence, but I learned from that process, and I ended up moving on to the next phase where I did the BRRRR strategy out of state and learned a ton there. And fast forward, I decided that was not the space to go. But because of the work that I had done on all of those deals, I was able to just recently sell all of those properties. And all of those properties basically covered my wife and my expenses, for the next 2 years. So those two terrible mistakes that I made in real estate that I would never want to do again actually put me in a position where this most recent transition has been not anywhere near as stressful or fearful as it could have been. So again, just another example of, I am very much a ready, fire, aim guy. Probably one of my biggest strengths and one of my biggest weaknesses all in one. But again, that fail forward mentality, I think has a lot of value to it.
Yeah, you really implemented that where it's the best time to buy real estate was yesterday. And that's why you buy real estate yesterday, because you don't know down the line what's going to happen. Well,
yep. 2 best times to buy real estate is 20 years ago, or plant a tree. They say plant a tree. Best time to do it is 20 years ago or today. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep.
Right. Well, I think we'll have to wrap this up. I really enjoyed our time together and just the insight that you've shared. Can you share with our listeners one book that that has really impacted you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you don't mind, I'm going to give 2. It's kind of a compilation of books, but I'm a really big fan of Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. And they have a series of books. I think they're actually under contract to put out a book every year for the next X amount of years. But from a tactical standpoint, a book called Who Not How is fantastic. So it helps you to go from me to we in a business and really start taking a look at what are those areas that I can really outsource to spend more time in my wheelhouse and what I love to do. Because if I can spend more time doing what I love to do, then my business is going to explode. And quite frankly, there is somebody else that absolutely loves to do the things that I don't love to do. So let's give them the opportunity to do that. Okay. Now, on the other side of the coin, a really, really good book by the same 2 authors, Benjamin Hardy, Dan Sullivan, is The Gap and the Gain. And it's this mindset shift where we have a tendency as humans to focus on how far we have yet to go. So how short of the finish line are we? And the simple mindset shift of moving over to look at how far we've come, and let's focus on the amazing growth that's occurred from 10 years ago to today is a much more positive mindset to be in. It's more of an abundance mindset, and it's less scarcity. Whereas if you're always looking at how far short you are and hitting your goal, that's a negative and a scarcity mindset. So making that shift, this book can help you do that. And it's just been really valuable and beneficial to me.
I haven't read the second book, but yeah, Who Not How is great. That mindset shift is really important to growing your business. Now, Randy, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So the business that I launched just a couple of months ago is Impact Equity. So you can find us at impactequity.net. My Instagram is @salesguyinvestor, which could possibly be changing shortly, but that's what it is today. And then probably the easiest and best way to follow me is on LinkedIn. That's where my 20 plus years of contacts are, where I'm putting all of my content out. And I just like the platform. So that's probably the easiest way to find me.
Good. Okay. And if you can give our listeners just one takeaway from today, what would that be?
Yeah, I would say maybe not a takeaway, but maybe an overarching principle that I think if applied in life, leads to amazing things, and it's integrity. Just simply doing what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, how you say you're going to do it. If you can only do one thing and you do that, you're 90% ahead of half the population out there. It amazes me how many people don't do what they say they're going to do. So just simply doing that, you're going to go a long way.
Good. Spot on there, Randy. Well, again, really appreciate your time today. I got a lot out of this. If nobody else did, I know they did. But
Yeah.
again, this is such a selfish thing that I do. I just talk to great people and I learn. So really, really appreciate your time today, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate you too, Caleb. Again, love seeing everything that you're doing. I'm just amazed at all the activity you do and just the amazing results that you're getting. I look forward to see just amazing things out of you in the future.
Thank you. Well, everyone, we're going to head out of here, but we hope to see you next time. Have a good day.
It's time to grab your victory. Find us on the web at redseacapitalgroup.com and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Red Sea Capital Group.